Hey, do you want to learn how to wholesale real estate in 14 days or less? Well, today I'm going to cover exactly how to do that. Through this strategy, myself and my students have been able to acquire wholesale real estate deals and actually close them within 14 days of getting them under contract. So my first year utilizing this exact process, I was able to acquire over 50 deals and generate over 12 million in revenue. So today, first off, if you don't know what wholesaling is, I'll explain that very quickly, and then I'll dive into each step. And by the end of this, you should feel very confident in being able to wholesale that first deal. And this is going to be without using any money in marketing, without spending $1 in marketing, without having to make any cold calls or put out any bandit signs, a lot of things that we don't like to do. All right. So first off, what is wholesaling real estate? It's when we essentially put a property under contract at one price, and then we sell that contract. We don't actually buy the property. We sell that contract and we make a wholesale fee. So for example, if I put this property under contract that's distressed, it's a distressed property, needs to be renovated, and I get under contract at 180, I can find a buyer who wants to buy it at $200,000, and I make the difference from where I put that property under contract at and then where I wholesaled it at, that $200,000 price. So now I make, as a wholesaler, a $20,000 wholesale fee. And this is exactly how I got started. It's how a lot of us get started in real estate investing when we don't have the experience, we don't have a lot of capital, and when we want to do this with virtually no risk. So that's the really cool thing. Throughout here, through this presentation, I'm going to show you how to actually do this without any repercussions, right? Because I'm going to show you how to have a back out clause on your contract. That's the most important thing, right? If you want to wholesale real estate, always have a back out clause on each and every deal. Now, for the sake of this video as well, there are multiple ways to close wholesale real estate deals, but I am only going to be talking about the assignment method to closing this deal, to transferring those contract rights. It's actually how we assign and wholesale about 99% of our deals. The other methods are a little more complicated, and I just want to show you what we actually do more often than not. All right, so let's dive into how to wholesale real estate in 14 days or less. So the first step, right, before we find the deals, before we find cash buyers, before we make any money at this process, we actually want to pick our real estate market. If you're watching this, there's probably a lot of you who've been stuck right here and never got started because you didn't know where to get started. And for a lot of people, if you live in a normal city that has a normal amount of people there, it's densely populated, I recommend starting there, right? If you live out in the boonies, somewhere completely rural, and it takes a 2-mile drive to see anyone in your neighborhood, do not start there because automatically you're going to have a limited supply of houses to be able to wholesale. So for a lot of people, I recommend picking your real estate market, and I recommend starting locally. Now, if you want some examples of great places to wholesale, where we've been wholesaling is here in San Diego County for the last 12 years. Some other great states, Texas, Florida, the Carolinas, we love those states. Even Colorado, we love Colorado as well. There's a lot of states, there's a lot of markets that we like. And if I didn't name your state, doesn't mean it's a bad state. Those are just places, those are hubs where a lot of people live and a lot of houses are being sold. So those are great markets to start wholesaling in. So I recommend starting locally, but for sure, if you don't like your market, you can also do this virtually. And virtually wholesaling real estate is when basically you just wholesale a house that's not in your current market, not in your local market, right? So it might be 1 state over or 5 states over, and that's completely fine to do that. I do think it is easier to wholesale locally. There's a lot of benefits to wholesaling locally. Like you can drive to a property and actually check it out and take photos of the property, which is going to help this process. You can meet a real estate agent at the property to walk through the property, right? When we do this virtually, it's a little harder, right? It's a little harder if it's 5 states over to go meet that real estate agent at 2 p.m. at that property, right? If you want to wholesale virtually, I recommend you have some affinity to that market. You've lived there before, you have a business partner there, you know real estate agents there, or you've done your research, you just feel like it's a good area, right? It's a good place to start wholesaling houses. Maybe you have cash buyers there already, all right? So step number 1, good job. It only took us a couple minutes. Most people never get started because they never pick their market. So let's do that right now, and let's pick our market. So step number 2 is find 3 to 5 cash buyers. All right, what are cash buyers? Cash buyers are the people or companies that are going to be buying your wholesale deals from you. These are the people that are going to be paying you wholesale fees. So that $10,000 check or $20,000 check or $30,000 check when you put a property under contract and then transfer those contract rights to them. Now, a lot of the times our cash buyers that we work with, they are fix and flippers. And we call them cash buyers because generally we're buying distressed properties for all cash. These are properties that need to go all cash. These are properties that need so much work to be done to them that a normal lender isn't going to lend on this property. So Jack and Sally, who have 2 kids, who want to buy their first house, who want to buy a nice renovated property, they're going to get a mortgage from a bank or a lender to buy this property. We're not competing and we're not going after those nice properties when we wholesale them. We're going after distressed properties that need the fixing up. So these cash buyers want these distressed properties, and we need to find these cash buyers first so you can find the exact properties that they want. This is going to make your job 100 times easier, right? Because what a lot of amateurs do is they don't do this step, right? They start finding distressed properties, they put properties under contract, and then they try and find cash buyers. And then they're out of luck when they can't find any cash buyers when they have a property under contract, right? They have to cancel it and they don't make any money because they didn't find cash buyers first. Instead, what we're going to do is find our cash buyers first, and we ask them what types of properties they want. It's called finding their buying criteria, because different cash buyers want different things, and different cash buyers buy different amounts of property. Some cash buyers buy property one property every 6 months. Some buy 5 a month. And what we want to do is find local and quality cash buyers. So whatever market you're wholesaling in, if I'm in San Diego County, I want to find cash buyers in San Diego County that are here. It doesn't benefit me if I find cash buyers that are all the way in New York, right? A completely different state. That cash buyer doesn't want deals here and isn't a local market expert. So I want to find local market expert cash buyers that are in my area buying deals. That's going to increase the likelihood that I'm going to be able to wholesale real estate. So we find these cash buyers and we talk to them. Now, one of my favorite strategies to find cash buyers really anywhere across the USA, and it only takes a few minutes, is utilizing Google. So I actually made a video compiling multiple ways to find these cash buyers. A lot of them free and very fast. You can do it in minutes. So I'll put a link to that video down below, but we can use things like Google and Craigslist. You can attend Real Estate Investing Association meetings. So be sure to check out that video because I'll go even more in depth on that. The next most important thing, once we find cash buyers, it's not like you just find a cash buyer and they know who you are and they're gonna buy all your deals. You have to actually talk to them and begin building a relationship, begin building rapport with them. Right? That's vital because these people are going to pay you potentially 7 figures or multiple 6 figures in a year, or at the very least, if you get a deal, 5 figures for this deal. And generally, if you're paying someone 5 figures, 6 figures, you want to know who the heck they are, right? So what we do is we actually talk to these cash buyers. We find them, we talk to them, reach out to them, we get their buying criteria. We take the server approach. We find out what zip codes they want to buy in, what cities they want to buy in, where they don't want to buy, what types of properties they want. And generally, we're going to find cash buyers that want to buy single family houses. So not apartment complexes, not mobile home parks. The American dream, what is it? It's to own a house. There's a lot of people that want to buy houses, especially renovated, nice houses. So fix and flippers, a lot of them like to fix and flip single family houses. So once we talk to our cash buyers, I want you to find 3 to 5 as well. Like, what's the point behind that? Let's say you get a deal under contract, you only find 1 cash buyer. That person's on a vacation or they have too many projects going on, they can't buy your deal. Well, then once again, you have a property under contract and you might have to cancel that contract and lose $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 because you only found 1 cash buyer. So we mitigate our risk. That's what the best investors and best wholesalers do by finding 3 to 5. So it increases the likelihood of us being able to wholesale real estate successfully. Now, this buying criteria, there are select questions we've been using for over 12 years to talk to these cash buyers to understand exactly what they want so you can find those exact deals that they want. And I actually have a video going in depth on that. So be sure to check out that video so you can talk to them and get their buying criteria. So all the questions, I even have a free script in there for you. All right, so now we picked our market. We know where we want to wholesale. We find 3 to 5 cash buyers in that market. And we want to find the cash buyers that are doing multiple deals per month as well. Those are my favorite cash buyers because if they buy 1 deal from you this week and you get another property under contract the following week, they can still buy all your deals. Those are the best ones. Sometimes you find cash buyers, fix and flippers, they've never done a fix and flip and they only do 1 every 12 months. As wholesalers, if we want to wholesale consistently and predictably, do multiple deals per month, make 6 figures or multiple 5 figures every single month, it's going to benefit us to find the cash buyers that can buy multiple deals per month. It's going to make everything a lot easier. So we talk to these cash buyers, we find their buying criteria. Now it's time to get started, right? Where most people start finding deals automatically, they skip these steps and have to cancel contracts. Now you're good to go. You have solid foundation. So now we want to find and filter for distressed properties. Now we're going to do this without having to spend any money in marketing. We're gonna do this without having to make any cold calls. We're gonna do this without having to put bandit signs on the side of the road at 4 a.m. in the cold weather. I'm gonna show you my favorite way on how we love getting deals. We've been doing this for the past 12 years. We've been able to acquire wholesale deals, fix and flip deals. Even a lot of our rental properties, our cash flowing rental properties today use this strategy. And so what we like to use is the MLS. The MLS is the multiple listing service. It's the database of all leads on the market for sale, all houses for sale. And the National Association of Realtors has came out, they come out every single year with stats, and it ranges from 86 to 92%. And what they say is 86 to 92% of all real estate transactions for single family houses happen on the MLS or with a real estate agent. We like to focus where all the volume is happening, where all the deals are happening. All right, and what's cool about the MLS too, right? If you ever see a for sale sign in front of someone's house, that person is now technically motivated to sell. And if you're a wholesaler, you're a fix and flipper, you're a real estate investor, what are you looking for? You're looking for motivated sellers, right? That's what you're looking for. And that's why we love the MLS too. Everyone's raising their hand saying, hey, I want to sell my property. Now what's true about the MLS too, there's beautiful renovated properties on there that are not great for wholesaling, but we don't focus on those properties. We focus on the distressed properties. Very important distinction. So when we find properties, we're looking for two things to be going on with them. One, the seller's in a distressed situation. They might be going through a divorce. They can't afford their mortgage payments, so it might be a pre-foreclosure or short sale. There might be some sort of litigation going on with the property. There's issues. Maybe they inherited a property and there's 5 siblings that don't like each other and they just want to get rid of this property, right? So some sort of distress in the situation, but then also a distressed condition of the property. And the distressed condition is where it's outdated, it's stuck in the 60s, it needs new electrical wiring, right? There's holes in the roof, maybe there was a flood on the property and it needs all new flooring. Maybe the foundation needs adjusting, right? There's a lot of things wrong with this property that need fixing up. And we go after these properties, number one, so we don't compete with normal homeowner offers. And then two, we do it so that we only compete with people that are other investors, because I can beat them out every single day. And these properties, when they're actually distressed, they need to go all cash. Very important, right? We're focusing on properties that need to go all cash. These are the ones we're gonna wholesale. Now, generally, a lot of the times, you wanna be licensed to get access to the MLS, meaning you get access pretty much automatically to it. You have to pay for it when you're licensed. It's one of the easiest ways. But what if you're not licensed? Then you get assistant access to the MLS. So in a lot of states, there's something called unlicensed assistant access. Sometimes it's called clerical access. There's different types of names for it, but you can get access to the MLS without having to be licensed. And we love the MLS because on the MLS, there's something called confidential remarks. And it's where a real estate agent selling this property can put in a little more info about the property. And sometimes there's golden nuggets in there that can actually help you get this deal under contract. And then it's just a great, phenomenal software generally that helps you analyze the properties and allows for a lot of efficiencies. But let's say you're like a lot of people, you don't have access to the MLS. What's the next best thing? If we want to find on-market properties, let's use Redfin, right? Let's use Zillow, let's use Realtor. So these are great websites that actually put on-market listings onto their own website. So a lot of these listings here are on the MLS. Sometimes not 100% of those listings are on the MLS, all those houses for sale are on here, but a lot of them are. And we can get started there. And this is where I recommend you get started if you don't have access to the MLS. So in this process, I want to teach you a way to actually get a property under contract, potentially same day. This strategy I'm about to share, I've taught to students, they've got deals same day under contract from using this strategy. So it's called the Day Zero strategy. The reason why this works so well is because every day we go onto the MLS or Redfin, we look at the new listings that are now for sale in the market. And let's say you're looking in your whole entire county and there's 50 new listings. Well, 40 of those listings might be those beautiful homes that normal homeowners are gonna buy. We don't want those, but there might be 5 or 10 that are distressed, where you look at the photos and they need fixing up. Diamond in the rough, right? Language where the listing agent is admitting, hey, this is a distressed property. So by looking at the photos, looking at the description, we can get an initial analysis and make an assumption saying, hey, this looks like a distressed property. Like a normal homeowner isn't gonna move into this property with their family. It needs fixing up, right? Like that mold, you're not gonna have kids live there. So we look at the properties that are distressed. So if we find 50 originally that are brand new listed, maybe we see, hey, 8, right? 8 today in the last 24 hours that are listed are distressed. Well, don't go after the other 42. That's going to waste your time. It's what a lot of people do. They spend all their time on the 42 listings that are brand new, you're competing with homeowners, and then they say, hey, man, this strategy doesn't work, but they're doing it completely wrong. So what we do is we focus on the distressed properties. And so now we know this is a motivated seller. They want to sell their property. The property is going to go all cash. Why not us, right? That's the pretty cool thing about this. So now we have 8 properties that are distressed. I want you to make an assumption, say, hey, which one looks the most distressed to the least distressed? And start calling on the one that is the most distressed. And we call the listing agent on this deal. This is very important, right? The listing agent is the one in charge of the deal. We're not talking to the seller. We're talking to the listing agent who the seller hired to sell their property. What's very important to understand too is this isn't a cold call, right? A listing agent, when they sell the property, they make money when they actually sell the property, when it's closed on by a buyer. They make something called a commission. Generally, it's about 2.5% that they make, a 2.5% commission. So let's just say this property was worth $200,000 that we're looking at. If we bought this property and this listing agent was selling it, they make $5,000 on this property, right? That's how they get paid. Now, the reason why these aren't cold calls is because a listing agent, when they list a house for sale, if it's distressed, they know they're going to get random phone numbers calling them, right? They're not going to chalk that off as spam like a lot of us do, right? Every day. I'm sure you get that too. Spam calls all the time. But when you actually list a property for sale and you're an agent, it's your responsibility to pick up random phone numbers. Most cases, that listing agent doesn't have your phone number, but they're going to pick up. They may not pick up on the first dial, but they're going to pick up. It's their job, right? It's their job to sell this property, which makes this process so much easier, right? If you've ever tried to go off market and make cold calls and try and find sellers that want to sell their property, you're talking to 999 people that don't want to sell their property to find that one. Instead, we talk to these agents that are listing properties that are absolutely distressed that we know are going to go to an investor. We know they're going to go to a wholesaler or fix and flipper. So this process makes it so much easier when we talk to agents who are in charge of the deal. Now we find these properties, we call them on a daily basis. And let's just say it's today, we found these 8 properties and we call on the first property. This is called a discovery call, right? We make these discovery calls daily. And on this initial phone call, this is a 2-call series. Very important you understand that. On this initial call, we're discovering about this deal, right? I want to know, do the photos on the MLS or Redfin or Zillow, that condition, is it truly distressed, right? I'm confirming that on the phone call because I want to make sure this property is going to go all cash. What do I not want to do? I do not want to compete with homeowner offers. Why? It's going to get bid up in price. It's going to be too high of a price. I'm not going to be able to wholesale it. It's going to waste my time. It's going to waste your time. So I confirmed the distressed condition of the property. And then a lot of the times, right, I also said we want to find sellers in a distressed situation. A lot of the times, that's not going to be on the description for the property. You're not going to look at the photos and say, hey, this seller's going through a divorce, right? They're in a distressed situation. But that can come out on the phone call when we talk to listing agents. That's the beauty of this. So where a lot of people go wrong is they do not make actual phone calls to agents. They send a text message or an email, and they have no verbal communication whatsoever with a listing agent. And when we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars of property, when we're talking about listing agents that are representing friends and family members, they want to trust you that you're actually going to buy this property, right? So we build a lot of rapport by going the little bit of an extra mile actually talking to these real estate agents. Now, what's beautiful about this process too is I'm going to teach you something. I'm going to teach you how to incentivize real estate agents so that they want to work with you. This is something you cannot do off market, right? You can do this on the market with these listings. Remember I told you that on a $200,000 property, a listing agent is going to sell the property, get 2.5% commission, make $5,000. Well, generally, there's something called a buyer's agent as well. And what's normal for them to get a lot of times is 2.5% commission as well. So usually there's a listing agent and a buyer's agent. On this property, that buyer's agent brings a buyer, makes $5,000, listing agent sells the property, makes $5,000. What we do as professional wholesalers, we go directly to the listing agent. We don't have a buyer's agent. So what's that mean? There's additional $5,000 floating out there. And if you want to increase the likelihood of you getting a property under contract that's distressed and to be able to wholesale it, what we want to do is give that agent that $5,000. Give them the buyer's agent commission. If we had a buyer's agent, give them that commission. So one of the first questions that you ask the agent, first you state that, hey, I'm a buyer, I'm not an agent, so would you be open to representing me as a buyer by any chance? So what did you do there? If this agent knows anything, they know that you just offered them something called dual commission. What you essentially did was you give them the opportunity to do the same amount of work and to make twice as much money, right? Because now they're representing both sides. They're representing the seller and you as a buyer. They do the same amount of work, they close one transaction. Instead of $5,000, they represent you. They make an additional $5,000, right? That's $10,000. Now let me ask you, do you think it's pretty incentivizing to do the same amount of work and make twice as much money? Yeah, pretty much motivates 99% of people. So when you do this on every single property that's distressed and give the opportunity to an agent to make twice as much money, do you see how that can be pretty incentivizing? Do you see how that can increase the likelihood of you getting a deal under contract, especially when you're dealing with an amateur that doesn't do this, right? Because when push comes to shove, let's say an agent has two offers on a property at $200,000. One they're representing both sides on, making $10,000, and one they're not. Which one do you think that the agent's going to root for? Which one do you think the agent's going to try and push through and make happen? Your offer where they make $10,000 in commission, or this other offer where they only make $5,000? Probably the one where they make $10,000, right? So I really want to nail that home. That's a big golden nugget that we've been utilizing for over 12 years, that we use not only for houses, but apartment buildings, office buildings, to get them under contract and to wholesale them, fix and flip them, and or cash flow them as rental properties. We make these discovery calls to a listing agent. I also want to know more about the deal. I want them to tell me what needs to be renovated, right? Maybe there's something I can't tell from the photos, and I'm writing this down, right? I'm taking notes. Now, there are a lot of questions that we do ask. So what I actually have is another video where I go through all those questions. I'll put that down in the description down below. But just understand, we're understanding the condition of the property, right? Is it distressed? Is it gonna go all cash? The seller's motivation. We're seeing if this listing agent is gonna represent us. Once we get all this intel about the property, we understand the deal. We then tell the agent, okay, awesome. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna get with my team, gonna analyze this property and let you know where we need to come in at to make it work. So on this initial call, this discovery call, I'm not giving the agent an offer price. I'm discovering as much as I can about the deal. I'm discovering about our competition. Maybe they even tell me where these other offers are coming in at. So I start to get a ballpark idea of where I need to be with my offer price. But it's not my goal to give an offer price on this initial call, because what's next is I actually have to analyze the property. That's very important for us to do. This is where wholesalers actually become worth their salt, where they analyze the property and then you know exactly where you need to offer at in order to make this property work, in order for you to make your ideal wholesale fee, and in order to make sure your cash buyer actually makes a profit and buys it from you, right? That's important, right? We're not selling unprofitable deals to cash buyers, we're selling them profitable deals, right? The reason why a cash buyer buys a deal from you is because they can make a profit when they fix and flip it. All right, so we have to know all those numbers. We have to think like a fix and flipper and analyze the deal like a fix and flipper. All right, so let's do that right now. So here's how we find out all the numbers on the property and exactly where we need to come in at. Here are a few important numbers. First, we have the ARV. This stands for the after repair value. This is the future value of our subject property. So the distressed property that we're calling on, that we want to get under contract, the after repair value is after it's been repaired, what is that value? Now we're thinking like a fix and flipper, because this is how they analyze a deal. Fix and flipper is going to look at a deal and say, hey, when I fix this up, what's the value? What are all my costs? Is this a profitable deal? So we're doing all those calculations right now. So ARV, we need to determine the repairs cost. So how much cost in repairs does it need to get it to that after repair value, to current market trends? Now we're also going to determine our wholesale fee and then our purchase price. The purchase price is where we're going to agree upon with that listing agent of where we're going to buy this property at. For this example, I'll use a formula that's commonly used. It's kind of an elementary formula to calculate all this. But in order to find the ARV, there's something called comparable properties. We are finding comparable properties that are close and similar, like our subject property, the property we're analyzing and putting under contract, to determine the future value. And we find these comparable properties that are renovated and our similar bed bath count and square footage of our subject property. So for example, if our subject property, the one that's distressed that we called on, is a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,200 square feet of living space, the actual structure size, then we want to find as many comps, comparable properties that are 3-bed, 1,200 square feet in the same city and within a half-mile radius that have sold within the last 6 months. We want to compare apples to apples, right? I'm not looking for a 5-bed, 5-bath, 4,000 square foot house. That is not comparable. That is not similar to my subject property. Instead, I want to find other 3-bed, 2-baths. So in this example, let's say I find a 3-bed, 2-bath that's 1,100 square feet, maybe one that's 1,300, and another one's like a model match. A model match is when it's the exact same model and builder of your property. Now, for this too, we want to find renovated properties that have sold in the last 6 months, because this is going to tell us what our property can sell at. It's using real numbers. There's no speculation here. It's very important, right? This is what the market says our property is going to sell for. So if I look at these 3 properties and I know that, hey, the model match sold at $400,000, and I know that the $1,300 one sold at $410, the 1,300 square feet one, and I know that the 1,100 square foot one sold at $390. They're all in the same neighborhoods, same city. They've sold within the last 6 months. They're renovated. Essentially, we average out what these are, and it comes to our price, estimate ARV of $400,000. Now, some properties are harder to comp, some are easier, but this is the general gist of it. This is a skill. No one's great comping properties immediately, but this is a very important skill and number, the ARV, and running comps. It's a very important skill to be a great wholesaler and fix and flipper. So I encourage you to keep on doing that and getting better at this. But once we determine this number, 400K, we now need to determine the repairs cost, right? Once again, we're thinking like a fix and flipper. Fix and flipper wants to know what type of repairs and how much repairs do I need to do this property to bring it up to this $400,000 value to get it there. I will give you a quick rule of thumb that we like to use. So pros, experts, what we've done over the years, we've gone line item by line item in houses. We know the cost of every single item in there. But an easier way to get the repairs cost is we talk to our cash buyers, right? In the buying criteria section, we get their buying criteria, we can actually ask them, do they use any rules of thumb to analyze properties? And sometimes a fix and flipper, cash buyer will have a rule of thumb if a property is only a cosmetic renovation, meaning it's not a 2-bed, 1-bath where this cash buyer wants to add additional square footage to it, an additional bed, additional bath. In this scenario, right, if it's all cosmetic, meaning it needs new flooring, it needs new cabinets. We're gonna remodel the bathrooms, but we're not doing anything, adding construction to this property. We're cleaning up the landscaping, cosmetic, right? Think cosmetic. We're not replacing the whole, new roof. We're not putting in an HVAC system. Cosmetic, then a lot of times there's a rule of thumb. So, something familiar in our county is $40 per square foot for a cosmetic renovation, bare minimum. So in this example, let's just say my subject property is 1,200 square feet, and I've talked to my cash buyers, and they say, yeah, we use $40 a square foot in order to renovate the property if it's all cosmetic. Well, what I can do is take $40 a square foot and multiply by 1,200 square feet. That gives me $48,000 estimated renovation budget. Great job. You're a pro. You know how to analyze repairs. So now we got the repairs number. Now let's start thinking about our wholesale fee. Right, a lot of times we shoot for $10,000. We've had wholesale fees over $20,000, $30,000. Sometimes you make a lot more, sometimes you make a lot less. But for this example, let's shoot for $20,000. We actually get to dictate that originally in this analysis part. We haven't given the agent our actual purchase price yet. So this is where the fun comes in. The lower we can negotiate a property and get under contract with an agent, the bigger our wholesale fee can be. So let's challenge ourselves. Let's shoot for a $20K wholesale fee. So let's have that number here. Now what we're able to do is dictate our purchase price. So I'm gonna break down a simple formula. It's called the 70% rule. It's gonna be ARV times 70% minus those repair costs minus wholesale fee. So what this is this is a general rule of thumb that basically if you're a fix and flipper and you run this analysis, it's gonna be a profitable deal. And it's going to give you your maximum allowable offer with a 30% threshold, 70%, a threshold to make a profit. So for example, let's just write it out. 400K times 70% minus 48K, those are the repairs, minus 20K wholesale fee. All right, and when I use the calculator, do all the math, with the 70% rule, it gives me a maximum allowable offer of $212,000. So this means if the ARV is $400,000 and we use the 70% rule and I subtract $48,000 in the repairs that it takes to get to the ARV and I subtract my $20,000 wholesale fee, the maximum price that I can offer to this agent to get under contract at is $212,000. All right. So this is a simple rule of thumb. It's what most people are using. But when you actually do this step and find cash buyers that are local and quality, you can usually find cash buyers that are buying at a higher percentage, more so like 80. Today, I recommend using 80% of the ARV. What's going to allow you to do is, most people only use 70%. It's going to allow you to offer higher than them and actually beat out the competition. So this one little simple hack can actually help you get more deals under contract and wholesale more houses. So in this scenario, I'll run the math again at 80%, and let me show you the big difference on this. All right, at 80%, it is $252,000 is now our maximum allowable offer. Okay, that is a $40,000 difference of where the person who used 70% is able to offer, and us who used 80% where we're able to offer. It's a $40,000 difference. Who's gonna win a majority of the time when we could submit an offer that's $40,000 higher than the competition? We are, right? And these are the small tweaks and differences. When you do things the right way, you talk to cash buyers, you actually understand what they're looking for, right? Where their thresholds are, their minimum profits they want to get. And we don't use whiteboards, of course, when we wholesale and flip property, when we analyze property. We use our deal calculator. And actually, that will allow us to crunch all of our numbers, soft costs, hard costs, down to the T. And it's much faster than using this paper napkin math, but also a lot of times allows us to be even more competitive. So of course I don't have my calculator on me, but I'll go ahead, I'll put that in the description if you want to grab our calculator so you can use it to analyze your wholesale deals as well. So now we know exactly where we need to offer at, let's say $252,000 in this scenario, to make a $20,000 wholesale fee. Let's go ahead and call the listing agent back, because now we know where we want an offer. And what most people are going to do is give out an offer willy-nilly on this first discovery call and have to backtrack. They didn't analyze the deal. And they put so much pressure on themselves. So relieve the pressure, treat this as a 2-call close. When we call the listing agent back, I call this the close call, okay? Now I have another video where I go in depth on the close call, what to say, how to say it. I'll put that video in the description down below. Essentially at this point, now that we analyze the property, all we're doing is confirming and telling the agent where we want to offer at and seeing if they will write up this offer for us. All right, what's important about wholesaling houses on the MLS is that agents actually write the contract for us. That's what's normal. We don't bring a random contract to the table and bring it to an agent. The agents use their local association of realtors contract. So the agent's going to write up the contract if they're representing us. That's the goal here. We tell them $252,000 and we work to get that agreement at $252,000. Of course, this is where negotiating comes in. You might have to come up a little bit. This is where, I've had a lot of agents throughout the years say, hey, Alex, 252 isn't going to work. And I let them know, hey, an offer is better than no offer, right? How about we just get it in and see what happens? And just that little extra shove to get this offer in has gotten me so many deals, it's ridiculous, where agents call you back and say, Alex, you told me so. The seller's willing to accept it. Or, there might be higher offers that come in, but then they're jokers, right? They're the people that on one call called the agent, said, hey, I'll offer $300,000. And then they try and find cash buyers. They have to cancel the contract. And then who's the knight in shining armor? The people that actually did their homework. Now the agent trusts us. Now the agent knows, hey, we're not going to backpedal. We're not going to back out. And we know if we get the property under contract at 252, we're going to make $20,000 on this deal. If the agent agrees to write up this contract for us, we let them know, great, I'm going to send you the offer terms via email and all the appropriate documentation, okay? This is where we send the agent what we want to be in the contract, And I'll tell you exactly what to put in that email, what to put on the contract so you can be a pro from day one instead of an amateur. And you also want to include the appropriate documentation. This is where a lot of people go wrong. A lot of people go wrong because they don't know how to wholesale houses from the MLS, how to communicate to agents, and then they say, hey, this doesn't work. And it's really because they don't work it the right way and they have no idea what they're doing, right? So if the agent's going to write up the contract for us, they have to know some information. So I make it stupid simple for them. I send them basically a very short email. I'm going to send them the address of the property we're offering on. Of course, they know that already, but I'm going to send them the purchaser name as well, right? If I'm purchasing an LLC, my business, that's the purchaser name. Now, a lot of us wholesale our first deals and we actually get a property under contract in our personal name because we don't have a business yet. And maybe you make $10,000, $20,000 on that first deal, you wrote an offer in your personal name, and then you use those funds to actually start a business. So it's still fine to, as the purchaser, to put your personal name. So do that if you don't have an LLC at this point. But eventually you definitely want to get a business. The point of an LLC is to limit your liability. So we have the purchaser name, either personal name or LLC. Then put the offer amount, which is the purchase price, right? The purchase price in this case is $252,000. Just make it ultra clear. Then we want to put our inspection contingency time period. All right, inspection contingency is your backout clause. This is the amount of time you have to inspect the property. Now, talking about doing this in 14 days or less, right? And it's hard to do that on retail property where you get a mortgage, right? A lot of people buying their first homes, it's a 30-day, 45-day close. When we use cash, what a lot of agents are used to is closing in 14 days or less. It's very, very common. What we want to do is also protect ourselves, and this is how we do it virtually risk-free. We include that inspection contingency. And I recommend, if you're wholesaling, always, always, always include an inspection contingency. This is your backout clause. So if the shade of grass is a different color green, you don't like it one day, you can back out of the contract. The inspection contingency is your backout clause. So in this email, the offer terms, 7-day inspection contingency time period, put that in there. It's the only contingency we really need at this point. Then you want to put the EMD amount. The EMD is the earnest money deposit. This is a good faith deposit that you put down and is generally refundable. But read this contract that you're going to get back from this agent, okay? Make sure that it is refundable. I don't want you losing any money. In a lot of states we work with, we always see that it is refundable, but it always depends on the contract, right? What you're agreeing to in that contract, you're agreeing to. So it's probably one of the most boring things for a lot of us that are, fast paced, but when you get a contract, read it, right? Drink that coffee, read through it, understand what you're agreeing to. It's going to help you so much as a real estate investor, and it's just what you have to do. So with the EMD amount, generally that can be anywhere from $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 to put down on the property. It's generally due within 72 hours. Now it's our goal to actually wholesale the house before that EMD is due. And if we do things right, there's many a times that we've wholesaled houses without putting an EMD in after 72 hours of getting under contract because we found our cash buyers, they're ready to rock, we found the exact deal that they wanted. It just kind of makes sense, right? They want to move quickly, they want this deal. What is a normal EMD amount? Usually like 1 to 3% of the purchase price. So if the purchase price is $252,000, $3,000 will probably suffice as an EMD. If you don't know, you can always ask the agent. Now you and the agent are on the same team. You can say, hey, what type of EMD do you think would be appropriate in this situation for the property? Or what would the seller like to see, right? If you don't know, you can always ask that question. The agent at this point should be on your side and tell you what's going to be a desirable EMD amount for this seller and make them feel confident moving forward with you. So it might be $3,000 for the EMD amount. Then as well in the offer terms, we always like to put this, not completely necessary, but I do it every single time. It's seller to deliver free and clear title. Essentially, it's just making it very clear. I'm not buying this property with any liens on it, any mortgages on it. I want free and clear title, right? When I give this property to a cash buyer, they don't want to buy a property with a mortgage on it. They want it paid off. So that's essentially what I'm saying. Free and clear title. And lastly, one golden nugget on the offer terms is I'll put buyer's agent and then I'll put the listing agent's name next to it just to remind them they're making twice as much money working with me. So those are the offer terms that we put in the contract. And if you do have an LLC, you want to include your articles of Inc. That's articles of incorporation. This basically just says, hey, you are an owner of this company and you're able to sign for this company. Sometimes your operating agreement might have that, but include that because now the agent doesn't need to ask any questions. They can see you're a valid signer. They can see you're a valid owner of this LLC. It's not, you're not running a scam, right? You own this LLC. If it's in your personal name, you don't have an operating agreement of articles of incorporation. So of course you don't need to do that. Now the next thing you need is a proof of funds. This is essentially a bank statement, a letter saying that you have access to the funds to buy this property, $252,000. So you can get these from hard money lenders, private money lenders, different people. You can get them from your cash buyers. Maybe you have the $252,000 in your account. You can just show them your bank statement. But for a lot of people starting out, they don't have that. So you can actually get these from different lenders. And it's actually pretty simple. It's not too hard, but you absolutely want to do this because if you don't submit an offer, or if you submit an offer without a proof of funds, what's going to happen is the agent's going to question if you have the funds or not. And it's our goal that the agent asks no questions. The goal is that you do everything like a pro and that you're going to close on this deal. They trust you, right? So we do all the little things right, and that builds up trust throughout this process. So for the proof of funds, I'll include a video down below how to get a proof of funds pretty easily. So go ahead, check that out. You can get it instantly and for free, but you can just get it from a high net worth individual, right? And I'll explain that in the video exactly how to do that. So now we send everything via email to the agent. Now all the agent needs to do is write up the contract. They'll use their little software. They'll input what you sent them in the terms into the contract. Then they'll send it back to you via email. So you get the contract back, you check it, make sure all your terms are in there. Make sure it's not a $2.5 million purchase. Make sure it's $252,000, right? Check the contract, read the contract, understand the contract. Once everything is good, you have your inspection contingency, you're protected. Now you sign it, you sign the contract and you send it back. Once again, a lot of times this is going to be a digital contract. You're going to use something like DocuSign or Zip Forms, click it and sign it, and it'll be sent automatically back to the agent. Now you're doing phenomenal at this point. You're already ahead of 99% of people, if you're doing this, who say they want to be a wholesaler and never get started. You've submitted an offer, a written offer to a real estate agent. And this step right here is worth its weight in gold because you actually sent a written offer, right? A big distinction we make here at Real Estate Skills, between an amateur and a pro. An amateur is going to make verbal offers. They're going to tell agents, hey, I'll buy at $252. But they'll never send a written offer because they don't know how, they don't know the steps, or they're just going to send an email without ever speaking to the real estate agent, hey, I'll buy it at $252 and think that's an offer. Or they'll text message the agent, hey, I'll buy it at $252, and they'll think that's an offer. An offer that we consider a real offer is a written offer, one that's actually written up, has all the terms in it. We sign it and send it back to a real estate agent. This is the most important KPI. This is what's going to move the needle in your business. And why is that? Because at this point, when we send the offer back, the contract back, we sign it, all the seller needs to do at this time is sign the contract, and now we have it under contract. It's that simple. When you're trying to wholesale real estate and you're counting like a verbal offer as an offer, doesn't really get you farther, right? You can make 1,000 verbal offers and nothing can happen. If I send 1,000 of these offers from following this process, I'll tell you, a lot of great stuff's gonna happen. Additionally, one of the benefits of sending a written offer is that sometimes a higher offer will come in from you. And there's a lot of newbies and amateurs, as I'm sure you know, that have no idea what they're doing. They offer too high of a price. They don't know how to simply break down a deal like this. They'll offer $350,000. They'll make it to the 6th day of their inspection contingency. Then they'll back out. And you know what's going to happen? That listing agent, they're going to go back to all of the offers, the written offers, the real people, because they want a real person closing this deal. They're going to go their email inbox. And even though you sent an offer and didn't get it under contract the first time, when this property gets canceled, this contract gets canceled, who do you think the agent's going to go back to? They're going to go to the people who actually sent written offers. All the time. So we've gotten so many deals where, yeah, there's a higher offer because they have no idea what they're doing, but then the agent calls us back and we're able to get the deal under contract. It also gives us permission to follow up, reminding them, hey, our offer is in your inbox. Can't wait to work with you on this particular deal. So now we send the offer back to the agent. I don't like leaving business up to hope, to chance. We want certainty. So follow up to get the executed contract. The executed contract is, you sent the contract back, now the seller signs it, now it's executed, now it's binding, now it's technically off the market. Now you own the equitable interest in the contract, which are the contract rights to buy it, and that is what's wholesalable. That is the value that you then created. So we need to get it executed, and you want confirmation of the executed contract. So we follow up with the agent. An example of this follow-up could be, we ask the agent, when is the seller reviewing offers? And if today is Thursday, they might say tomorrow at 1 p.m., Friday at 1 p.m. Great, okay, you mind if I give you a call in the morning and see where we're at, see where we're standing, and if we need to make any adjustments? No, don't mind at all. So now the morning of Friday, call the agent back. This can make you a lot of money when we call the agent back, because now we can say, hey, where do we stand, right? Were there any other offers that came in at? Do we need to adjust anything to make our offer more desirable, to make sure it gets under contract? Do you see the power of these questions? Do you see the power of communication on the phone? That is why we love talking to real estate agents. It's why we work with real estate agents, why we incentivize agents, because we can get information to then make these deals happen. The deals are in the data, the deals are in the information. So, right, I've gotten deals simply because I made that 5-minute phone call and they said, Alex, you know what? If you come up to 255, there's an offer at 254. If you come up to 255, then we can make it work. I said, great, not a problem. So instead of my $20,000 wholesale fee in that example, I come up to 255. That would reduce my wholesale fee by $3,000, and then I make $17,000 instead of what? Instead of zero, right? If I didn't make that phone call, I wouldn't have got the deal under contract. So this is where we can be proactive, be a pro, and actually make deals happen, right? So there's a big difference, right, between the pros and the amateurs that try something like this and like, oh, it doesn't work. And they're doing everything wrong, right? There's a lot of little nuance and details in here. So we follow up, we get the executed contract. Sometimes if you're using a digital software like DocuSign, it might send you that automatically. If not, we want that executed contract back so that we can confirm it's actually executed and signed. So I'll have them send it back to you, okay? So at that point, as soon as we get it under contract, officially, don't wait 2 days to go talk to cash buyers. Don't wait 7 days. The timelines kick in. Right, and we got a closing timeline, so a 14-day close. That's something that we want to do. We need to adjust that closing time frame. This is back in the email offer terms, but agent might want a 10-day closing time frame or 14-day closing time frame. I recommend starting with the 14-day closing time frame, 14 days or sooner that you can close. So in this example, let's say we made it a 14-day closing time frame. Okay, so that's an important time frame and deadline to let the cash buyer know of. Also, the EMD timeline. 3 days and how much it is. And then additionally, the inspection contingency timeline. Very important because the cash buyer needs to actually go out and inspect the property themselves too. And so really the day we get the property under contract, all those timelines kick in, right? So like as a visual example, right, we have the close here. We have the inspection contingency, IC, 7 days, 14 days, and EMD due 3 days. This is the game we're playing. So EMD needs to be in 3 days. Inspection contingency needs to be removed 7th day, and we close on the 14th day. That's the timeline. So we're all on the same page with our cash buyers. Now, additionally, we want to send this all in an email, the deadlines. And let me go off a list of what we want to send them. We want to send them the comparable properties. We want to send them photos of the property if you've been to the property. Either send them in a Google Drive or Dropbox so they can actually see it without having to go there. We want to send them the viewing instructions. What that means is if they want to go see the property, how do they go see it? Is there a lockbox on the property? Or are you going to handle viewing with the agent and actually bring them there and walk through with them? Now, here's one more very important thing, what we want to do. We want to include the big 3 numbers. What are the big 3 numbers in this scenario? I want my cash buyer to know what the ARV is, right? In this scenario, we have $400,000. I'm going to put that in the email for them. I want them to know what the repairs cost is. It's $48,000. Here's an important thing. I know that I offered on the property at $252,000. That's where I offered on the property. But in the email to my cash buyers, I put their purchase price here. Their purchase price is my purchase price that I got the property under contract at, plus my desired wholesale fee. In this case, it's $20,000. So I add $20,000 to $252,000, and I'm going to tell them their purchase price is $272,000, right? I'll put this in the email for them. And why do I do this? One, like if you're an amateur, you tell them your wholesale fee, and I don't want them to know my wholesale fee at this point in time. 2, I only want them thinking about, does this deal work for them and their company at these numbers? I don't want them thinking about what my wholesale fee is. I just want a yes, no, or maybe. Yes, it works. No, it doesn't. Or maybe it does if we adjust something. Or maybe I need to see more comparables, they say. So this makes your job a lot easier. We get to focus on the deal when talking with our cash buyers, because you send this email to your cash buyers and you immediately follow up with a phone call to them, letting them know that this email's in their inbox with all the necessary information. And do you have time to talk about the deal? I found this deal. It's exactly what you want because I found your buying criteria earlier. Let's talk about it. Let's see how we can make this happen. You made your life easier because you followed step 2, right? Because you're smart. You found your cash buyers first. So now you're not like most struggling wholesalers who get down to this step and now they're running around like a chicken with their head cut off because they don't know one cash buyer in their area. And also, what also goes wrong too is because you don't know what your cash buyers want, these wholesalers, the amateur wholesalers, they're putting the most random properties under contract that cash buyers don't want. They're putting properties under contract out in the boonies. They're putting farms under contract that cash buyers don't want. You made your job a lot easier by helping yourself, finding out what they wanted. And now we know the likelihood of them wanting this deal is so high because they've told you this is exactly what they want. So now we send all this information to the cash buyer. We talk about it with our cash buyers. We've mitigated our risk. Maybe one's on vacation, so now we have 4 cash buyers to talk to. Maybe another one has 10 projects going on, right? They don't have any more capital. They can't handle it. So now we actually have 3 cash buyers that want our deal. Well, perfect. Now what we can do is agree upon the price with the cash buyer, and then we're going to sign the contract. Maybe 272 works for them exactly, right? I've had that happen. Maybe they want to negotiate a bit and they say, you know what, 270 works. Okay, cool. I'll adjust my wholesale fee. Maybe it doesn't work for them at all, right? Maybe, this happens a lot of time. I thought they were a cash buyer. It doesn't happen to me anymore, but for a lot of newbies, you think you're talking to a cash buyer. You maybe didn't use the strategies I teach you and you didn't verify, you didn't talk to them. And they go cold turkey and they're actually like, no, I've never actually done a fix and flip deal. I'm too scared to do it. I don't actually purchase houses. So in this scenario, we're going to find one of these cash buyers that works for us. We agree upon the price. And for this example, let's say, since we analyzed it like a pro, it worked out. We knew it worked. We did our due diligence. 272 does work for them. Now we can assign the contract. We use something either called an assignment contract or assignment addendum. This is an additional piece of paper that essentially outlines that we are signing the contract rights to the cash buyer. It has our name or LLC name on there, and then also their name as well. And what we want to do is list our wholesale fee amount, which is the assignment fee, $20,000 for the assignment of the contract rights. And if you want an example of a contract as well, I'll put that in the description, example of the assignment contract so you can use it. And what we're going to do is send this assignment contract and everything to escrow and title. So escrow and title are usually the companies that handle the closing of a transaction. They're going to make sure that everything in the contract is abided by, the main purchase and sale agreement that we use, and then also the assignment contract. So then escrow and title will handle the distribution of the funds. They'll handle the actual wholesale check getting into your pocket and or wired to your bank account, and they'll handle the actual closing of the property. So at this point, once you sign the contract rights, right, there's a seller of the property. And that new cash buyer is going to take over the contract and pay the seller to buy the property. So you got paid $20,000 from this number of 272, but they're going to pay the seller $252,000, right? You see the difference? You made the cream on top. So we got the property under contract at $252,000. That's what we communicated with the agent. So we did all the math on. And then you wholesaled it for $272 to make $20,000. So if we have a 14-day close, generally on the 14th day, you get paid your $20,000 once it closes. Now you can set up these agreements as well to get paid a deposit up front, maybe 50% of your wholesale fee at time of assignment. So maybe you assign it day 5 in this 14-day process, you get paid $5,000. And then when you close at the end, you get paid additional $5,000. We've set it up that way. But generally, since we have such great relationships with our cash buyers, we trust them. It doesn't matter if I get paid on day 5 or day 14. Usually we just handle it day 14 because they want us to get paid. They want us to make this money. And then we're able to close the deal. So once again, if you're working with escrow and title, there's also attorney states. If you're an attorney state, that attorney is just going to handle the closing and make sure you get all the proper funds. Now we close the deal, we get paid, and sometimes you're going to do $10,000 deals, sometimes 30. This case, it was 20, sometimes less, sometimes more. But what's really important is if you're working towards your first deal, it's not really about the amount that you make. Yes, we want to make a profit, right? But from you going through this process, from you actually even getting down to here and saying a written contract, you've done more than 99% of people. You're actually taking this seriously. If it takes you more than 14 days too, that's fine. Like this setup I wanted to share with you was how to do it literally in 14 days or less using our day zero strategy, right? I didn't tell you to run a mailing campaign for 60, 90 days and send 1,000 pieces of mail. I taught you how you can pick up the phone and analyze properties distressed today that want to go under contract, that are going to go under contract with the wholesaler and fix and flipper. This is how we've had students get such quick results, right? This is how I've had people reach out to me just from our YouTube channel alone. Hey, Alex, I did over $100,000 this year wholesaling real estate through what you taught. This is how we can wholesale deals in 14 days or less. We've actually taught people to do it sooner. Once again, sometimes it's longer. If it takes you 30, 60, 90 days, even longer than that to do your first deal, guess what? You're still doing amazing. You're doing more than most people. And what's very important about wholesaling too is this is and was the foundation for me in real estate. So because of this strong foundation, because I learned how to analyze properties like a fix and flipper, because I learned how to build relationships with cash buyers, I was then able to leverage their contractors to then do my first fix and flips. Because I could ensure that this was a profitable fix and flip for that cash buyer, it then gave me the confidence to do fix and flips and make profits because I knew that they were profitable deals. Because I started analyzing deals and building relationships with agents, it gave me the confidence not only to do this in San Diego, but in multiple states as well. And this is exactly what we teach on and help people to get started in real estate. But like I mentioned, we use this for wholesaling, right? We use this for fixing and flipping. We use this for investing into cash flowing rental properties too, which I absolutely love, right? This is a phenomenal way to make active income in real estate. And if you want to get started in real estate and you don't want to get licensed, then this is the best and fastest way, in my opinion, to get started. And if you want to level up and evolve as a real estate investor too, right? Someone who probably then not only wholesales, but then cherry picks the best to fix and flip, make larger profits, because now it might not be $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, right? There's a fix and flip deal I did in those mountains over $250,000 of profit, right? You can get bigger profits, but there's more risk. So I recommend starting with wholesaling so there's virtually no risk. Why? Because of our back out clause, our special contingency. Now, at the end of the day, I do want you to know, once again, the contract you're agreeing to is the law of the land. It's one of the most important things that you can read. And it's really about these little details, as you can see in the contract. It's about the little details that make a successful deal, that make a winning deal so that you can actually make a profit. And hopefully you can see the better you get at this too, the larger profits you can get, right? If you can negotiate better, if you can incentivize agents better, if you can analyze better, if you can find better cash buyers, now you can turn those $10,000 deals into $30,000 deals. All of these things add up. And in order to make this add up for you as well and to fill in some of the gaps too, I also created an additional training. And it's going to cover a lot of this, but also a little more nuance, right? Why does this work nationwide and how you can actually apply this to your local market so that you can actually start wholesaling in 14 days or less and start consistently and predictably getting these deals. Because it's not just about doing one deal one time. I want you to do multiple deals every single month. That's what moves the needle. That's what brings in the income for the business. And so if you want to check out that training, just to make sure you don't have this go in 1 year and then out the other and actually have it solidify, stack rocks in your favor, you can check that out, realestateskills.com/watch. And I'll cover the 4 big shifts that are happening right now in the market and how you can actually use them to your advantage to get ahead, to get started. And then not only wholesale, but fix and flip, and then invest into cash flowing rental properties. So I hope you enjoyed this on how to start wholesaling in 14 days or less. Try to go as quick as I could, no fluff whatsoever. This is Alex Martinez with Real Estate Skills. I'll see you in the next one.